The small shuttle emerged from faster-than-light travel near Earth. Jake Morrison sat in the pilot seat, staring at the blue planet ahead. 3 weeks had passed since the attack. 3 weeks of silence as he and Amy Carter made their way home through empty space, not knowing if Earth still existed. Getting multiple signals from Earth defense stations, Amy said from the co-pilot seat. Her voice was tired. Neither of them had slept much during the journey. They're alive. Earth survived. Jake felt relief wash over him. At least home was still there. But the colonies, he had heard the reports before their shuttle got out of range. 40 million dead. Entire cities turned to ash. The Calreth had been thorough. Earth's defense fleet intercepted them quickly. Military ships surrounded the shuttle, weapons powered up. Jake didn't blame them. After the attack, everyone was jumpy. Shuttlecraft, identify yourself immediately or we will fire. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Aurora. We're survivors from the Calreth attack, requesting permission to land. There was a long pause. Then, Aurora was destroyed with all hands. How do we know you're who you say you are? Jake transmitted his identification codes and biometric data. Another pause, longer this time. Finally, the response came. Codes confirmed. You're cleared to land at Defense Command. Welcome home, Captain. The shuttle touched down at the military headquarters. Jake and Amy were immediately surrounded by security personnel and rushed into a medical facility. Doctors checked them over while intelligence officers waited impatiently outside. Within an hour, they were declared healthy and brought to a conference room. The room was filled with the most powerful people on Earth. President Kyle Matthews sat at the head of the table, his face showing the strain of the past 3 weeks. Admiral Lisa Chen stood beside him, her uniform crisp and her expression hard. Around the table sat defense ministers, military commanders, and intelligence chiefs from every major nation. Captain Morrison, President Matthews said, "Tell us everything." Jake told them about the trap, about how the Calreth had planned the attack from the beginning. He told them about the weapons platforms, about Ben Harper dying in his arms, about watching the Aurora explode. Amy provided the technical details, showing them scans of Calreth weapons and ship designs. When they finished, silence filled the room. Finally, Admiral Chen spoke. "We've lost contact with all 3 colony systems. New Seattle, Horizon's Edge, and Port Liberty are gone. Total casualties are estimated at 42 million people. The Calreth fleet destroyed every ship, every station, every settlement. They left nothing." One of the defense ministers slammed his hand on the table. "Then we surrender." "We have no choice. Their fleet is 10 times larger than ours. Their technology is centuries ahead. If we fight, they'll destroy Earth too. If we surrender, we become slaves," another minister shot back. "They didn't offer us terms. They offered us chains." The argument erupted quickly. Half the room wanted immediate surrender. The other half wanted to fight, even though everyone knew Earth's military couldn't win. Jake sat quietly, listening to people debate humanity's future. President Matthews held up his hand for silence. "Captain Morrison, you spent time on their homeworld. You saw their military firsthand. If we fight, do we have any chance at all?" Jake thought about the question carefully. "Their technology is better than ours. Their fleet is larger. In a straight fight, we lose, but what?" "They're arrogant," Jake said. "They think they already won. They think we're beaten. The Calreth have been the dominant power for so long that they can't imagine anyone actually challenging them. That's a weakness we can exploit." Admiral Chen leaned forward. "What are you suggesting?" "We make them think they were right. We send a message accepting their terms. We act defeated. But secretly we prepare for war. We use every resource we have to build weapons, build ships, train soldiers. And when they come to collect their prize, we hit them with everything we've got." The room went quiet again. President Matthews looked around the table. "That would require every nation to work together. We would have to redirect all of our resources to military production. Our economy would collapse. People would suffer. And if the Calreth discover what we're doing, they'll attack immediately and we'll have nothing to defend ourselves with." "Yes," Jake said simply. "But it's the only option that doesn't end with humanity enslaved or extinct." The debate continued for hours. Jake and Amy were eventually dismissed and taken to temporary quarters. Jake lay on the bed staring at the ceiling. He kept seeing Ben's face, kept seeing the Aurora explode, kept thinking about 40 million people who died because the Calreth decided humanity was too dangerous. The next morning, President Matthews gave a global address. Jake watched it on the screen in his quarters. "My fellow humans," the president began. "3 weeks ago, we suffered the worst attack in our history. 42 million of our brothers and sisters were murdered by an alien empire that saw us as a threat. They have given us 1 year to surrender everything that makes us free. Many of you are asking what we should do. Some say we should surrender to save lives. I understand that fear, but I want you to know what surrender really means." The president paused, letting his words sink in. "Surrender means giving up our weapons and our technology. It means accepting Calreth governors who will rule over us. It means our children will grow up as servants to an alien empire. It means the end of human independence forever. The Calreth think we're defeated. They think we'll accept their terms because we're too weak to fight back. And we will let them think that. Today, I am sending a message to the Calreth Collective accepting their terms and requesting a meeting to discuss our surrender. But this is a deception." The camera moved closer to the president's face. His expression was steel. "While they wait for us to surrender, we will prepare for war. Every factory will build weapons. Every shipyard will construct warships. Every man and woman who can fight will train. We will use this year to transform Earth into the most dangerous planet in the galaxy. And when the Calreth come to claim their victory, they will find that humanity doesn't surrender. We fight." The speech sent shockwaves around the world. Some people celebrated. Others protested, saying the president was condemning Earth to destruction. But slowly the protests faded. People began to understand there was no good choice. Only the choice between fighting for freedom or accepting slavery. Jake was promoted to colonel and given command of the new fighter pilot program. Admiral Chen explained the plan in his first briefing. "We're building a new type of fighter," she said. "Fast, heavily armed, and equipped with experimental weapons. We're calling them Reapers. Your job is to train the best pilots we have and turn them into killers." "How many fighters?" Jake asked. "We're planning to build 5,000 within the next 10 months. That's more fighters than we've built in the last 50 years combined." Jake felt dizzy. "That's impossible." "Everything we're doing is impossible," Admiral Chen replied. "But we're doing it anyway. We've activated Protocol Forge. Every resource on Earth is now directed toward the war effort. We're building underground factories on the Moon and Mars. We're converting civilian shipyards to military production. We're recruiting and training soldiers faster than ever before in history. Impossible is all we have left." Jake threw himself into the work. He handpicked 50 pilots and began training them 14 hours a day. He taught them everything he knew about combat flying. He made them practice until they could hit a target the size of a basketball from 50 kilometers away. He trained them to be ruthless, to show no mercy, to strike fast and disappear before the enemy could respond. Meanwhile, Amy Carter was working with Dr. Claire Anderson in a secret laboratory. Claire was a weapons scientist, one of the best humanity had. Together, they were developing something that could change the balance of power. "It's called a quantum disruptor," Claire explained to a group of military officers. "It generates a field that destabilizes matter at the molecular level. In simple terms, it tears apart anything it touches. The Calreth shields won't stop it because it doesn't work like a normal weapon." "How powerful is it?" one officer asked. Claire pulled up a simulation. "1 disruptor can destroy a Calreth battleship. 10 disruptors can destroy a small moon." The officers looked at each other. "How many can you build?" "With current resources? Maybe 200 in 10 months. But each one requires rare materials that are difficult to extract." "You'll have whatever you need," the officer said. "Build as many as you can." All over Earth, similar conversations were happening. Scientists developed new weapons. Engineers built ships faster than should be possible. Soldiers trained until they collapsed from exhaustion. The entire planet became a single machine with one purpose: preparation for war. Commander Nick Ryan oversaw the construction of the new fleet in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. Hidden from Calreth surveillance by the debris and radiation, thousands of workers assembled warships in secret. The ships were big, heavily armored, and covered in weapons. They had names like Vengeance, Fury, and Reckoning. "How long until the fleet is ready?" Admiral Chen asked during one of their weekly video conferences. 8 months, Nick replied. "Maybe 7 if we push harder. But 10 months had changed everything. Jake Morrison walked through the underground training facility, watching his pilots practice combat maneuvers in simulators. The Reaper Squadron had grown from 50 pilots to 500. Every one of them could hit a moving target from impossible distances. Every one of them was ready to die fighting. Colonel Morrison, a young pilot named Kate Sullivan, climbed out of her simulator, sweat dripping down her face. I just completed the advanced combat sequence in 4 minutes. That's a new record. Jake checked her scores. She had destroyed 27 enemy targets without taking a single hit. 6 months ago, she had been a civilian cargo pilot. Now she was a weapon. Good work, Sullivan. Run it again. This time I want you under 3 minutes. Yes, sir. She climbed back into the simulator without hesitation. This was what humanity had become. Every person working at their absolute limit. Every resource directed toward one goal. Jake walked through the facility, observing the transformation everywhere he looked. Mechanics worked around the clock, repairing and improving the Reaper fighters. Engineers tested new weapon systems. Medical staff treated injuries from the brutal training schedule. Nobody stopped. Nobody complained. They all knew what was coming. Jake's communicator buzzed. Colonel Morrison, Admiral Chen wants to see you in command immediately. On my way. He took a transport to the military headquarters building. Earth had changed in visible ways. At night, cities were dark except for essential services. Streets were empty. Everyone was either working in factories, training for combat, or supporting the war effort in other ways. Civilian life had basically stopped. Humanity had put everything on hold to prepare for one battle. Admiral Lisa Chen looked exhausted when Jake entered her office. She probably hadn't slept in days. Maps and tactical displays covered every wall, showing ship positions, weapon deployments, and defensive formations. Jake, sit down. We need to talk about the final battle plan. She pulled up a holographic display showing Earth and the surrounding space. The Calreth fleet will arrive in 3 weeks. Our intelligence says War Commander Thelnock is bringing 300 capital ships, each one capable of destroying a planet. He's also bringing thousands of support vessels and fighters. Total enemy force, approximately 100,000 ships. Jake felt his stomach tighten. And our forces? We have 100 capital ships completed. Nick Ryan finished the last one yesterday. We have 5,000 Reaper fighters. We have defensive platforms around Earth, the Moon, and Mars. We have the quantum disruptors and other experimental weapons. On paper, we're outnumbered 10 to 1. But we have advantages, Jake said. We're fighting in our home system. We know every asteroid, every orbital pattern. And we have Alex Grant's virus ready to shut down their communications. Exactly. Admiral Chen highlighted several points in the holographic display. We're going to use the asteroid belt as cover. Nick Ryan's fleet will hide behind the Moon. Your Reaper squadron will position here behind Mars. When the Calreth fleet enters the system, we let them get close. We make them think they've already won. Then Alex activates the virus, their communications fail, and we attack from all sides at once. Jake studied the battle plan. It was aggressive, risky, and depended on perfect timing. What if the virus doesn't work? What if they detect our hidden forces before we're ready? Then we die fighting, Admiral Chen said simply. But at least we die free. Jake left the meeting and headed to the research facility where Amy Carter and Dr. Claire Anderson were working. The facility was deep underground, protected by layers of concrete and steel. Security was intense. The work happening here was too valuable to risk. He found Amy in a laboratory filled with equipment he didn't understand. She was examining a small device that glowed with an eerie blue light. When she saw Jake, she smiled tiredly. Jake, perfect timing. Come look at this. She held up the device carefully. This is the latest version of the quantum disruptor. Claire figured out how to make them smaller and more powerful. Each one can now destroy a ship twice the size of a Calreth battleship. We've manufactured 230 units. Every major warship in our fleet has at least one. Will it be enough? Jake asked. Amy set down the device and looked at him directly. Honestly? I don't know. The Calreth have more ships, better shields, and more experience. But we have something they don't have. We have rage. We remember what they did. And we're not going to stop fighting until every Calreth ship is debris. Jake had noticed the change in Amy. She used to be gentle, thoughtful, always considering every angle. The attack had hardened her. She had lost friends on the Aurora, just like he had. She had spent 10 months building weapons designed to kill as many aliens as possible. The scientist who once studied stars was now a warrior who studied death. I need to check on Claire, Amy said. She's been working for 30 hours straight. She won't stop unless someone makes her. They found Dr. Claire Anderson in another laboratory, surrounded by holographic displays showing weapon designs. Her eyes were red from exhaustion, but she was still working, still calculating, still trying to give humanity an edge. "Claire, you need to rest," Amy said gently. "Can't rest. The Calreth fleet arrives in 3 weeks. Every hour I work might mean another ship destroyed, another life saved." Claire pulled up a new design. "Look at this. It's a mine that can cloak itself. We spread thousands of these throughout the system. When the Calreth ships pass by, they explode. We could destroy hundreds of their vessels before they even know we're attacking." "Can you build them in time?" Jake asked. "If the factories work around the clock, yes. Barely." Claire finally looked at them. "Jake, Amy, I need you to understand something. Even with all these weapons, all these preparations, we might lose. The odds are against us. But if we do lose, I want the Calreth to remember this battle forever. I want them to look at the wreckage of their fleet and know that humanity fought with everything we had." Jake put his hand on Claire's shoulder. "We're not going to lose. We can't afford to lose." Across the system, Commander Nick Ryan inspected his fleet one final time. The warships floated in space behind the moon, hidden from any sensors the Calreth might have sent ahead. The ships were massive, built for one purpose: destroying the enemy. Nick stood on the bridge of the Fury, Admiral Chen's flagship. Engineers ran final systems checks. Weapons officers tested firing solutions. Medical teams prepared for casualties. Everyone knew their job. Everyone was ready. "Commander Ryan, all ships report ready for combat," his second-in-command reported. Nick looked at the tactical display showing the locations of every human ship, every weapon, every defensive position, everything they had built in 10 months. Everything humanity had sacrificed to create. Good. Now we wait. On Earth, President Kyle Matthews addressed the planet one final time before the battle. Jake watched the speech from the pilot-ready room, surrounded by his squadron. "My fellow humans," the president began. "In 3 weeks, the Calreth fleet will arrive expecting us to surrender. They think we're defeated. They think we'll hand over our freedom without a fight. They're about to learn how wrong they are. We have spent 10 months preparing for this moment. We have built ships. We have created weapons. We have trained our people to fight. But more importantly, we have remembered. We remember the 42 million who died in the colony attacks. We remember their faces, their names, their dreams, and we will fight for them. The battle ahead will be difficult. Many of us will not survive. But those who do survive will tell a story that will echo across the galaxy for 1,000 years. They will tell the story of how humanity faced an empire that wanted to enslave us and we said no. They will tell the story of how Earth stood alone against overwhelming odds and refused to surrender. They will tell the story of how we sent a message written in fire. To every person listening to this broadcast, I want you to know that you have done something incredible. You have worked harder than should be possible. You have sacrificed everything. You have transformed our world into a military power that can challenge the greatest empire in the galaxy. You are heroes, every single one of you. And to the Calreth, I have a message. You attacked us because you thought we were dangerous. You tried to destroy us because you feared what we might become. Well, now you're going to find out. You wanted to see humanity at our most dangerous? You're about to get your wish." The speech ended. In the ready room, Jake's pilot sat in silence. Finally, Kate Sullivan spoke up. "Colonel, do you think we can really win?" Jake looked at each of his pilots. They were young, most of them barely in their 20s. 6 months ago, they had been students, workers, parents. Now they were soldiers preparing to fight for humanity's survival. They deserved an honest answer. "I don't know if we'll win," Jake said. "The Calreth have more ships. They have better technology. They have experience we don't have. But they're missing something important. They're fighting because they fear us. We're fighting because they murdered our families. Fear makes you careful. Rage makes you unstoppable. So yes, I think we can win. And even if we don't, we're going to make them regret ever hearing the name humanity." The pilots nodded. They understood. This wasn't about victory. This was... The Calreth fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the solar system. War Commander Thelnock stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dominion, watching Earth appear on his viewing screen. The small blue planet looked peaceful, defenseless. This would be an easy day. "Scan for military vessels," Thelnock ordered. His tactical officer worked the controls. "Detecting minimal military presence, Commander. A few patrol ships around Earth, no capital ships, no defensive formations. It appears they have complied with our demands." Thelnock allowed himself a satisfied smile. The humans had learned their lesson. They understood that resistance was pointless. Now they would serve the collective like so many other inferior species before them. Open a communication channel to Earth. It's time to accept their surrender. The communication officer tried multiple channels. Commander, we're receiving no response from Earth. All channels are silent. That was strange. Perhaps the humans were too ashamed to face their conquerors. Continue trying. Advance the fleet toward Earth. Standard formation. 300 Calreth battleships moved deeper into the solar system, surrounded by thousands of smaller vessels. The formation was perfect, organized, overwhelming. This was the might of the Calreth collective, and no one could stand against it. But War Commander Thelnock didn't know that hidden behind Mars, Colonel Jake Morrison watched the enemy fleet approach. In his Reaper fighter, surrounded by 500 other pilots, Jake felt his heart pounding. This was it. Everything they had trained for came down to this moment. All units, hold position. Jake ordered over the secure channel. Wait for the signal. Nobody fires until Admiral Chen gives the order. Behind the moon, Commander Nick Ryan watched the same tactical display. His fleet of 100 warships waited in silence, weapons powered down to avoid detection. The crews sat at their stations, fingers hovering over firing controls, waiting. On Earth, Admiral Lisa Chen stood in the command center surrounded by tactical displays. She watched the Calreth fleet advance slowly, confidently. They had no idea what was about to happen. Status report from all units, she ordered. Reaper squadron ready? Jake's voice came through. Fleet ready? Nick Ryan reported. Weapon platforms ready, another voice confirmed. Ground defenses ready. Admiral Chen looked at the tactical display one more time. The Calreth fleet was exactly where she wanted them. Lieutenant Grant, activate the virus. Deep in Calreth space, Alex Grant sat at his terminal in the communication hub. He had been waiting for this order for months. His hands moved across the controls, entering the commands he had memorized. On his screen, the virus activated and began spreading through the Calreth network. On the Dominion, War Commander Thelnock suddenly heard alarms blaring. What's happening? His communication officer looked panicked. Commander, we've lost communication with the fleet. All channels are dead. I can't reach any of our ships. What, that's impossible. Fix it now. I'm trying. The entire network is down. It's like something is blocking every frequency. Thelnock felt the first flutter of concern. But it was probably just a technical problem. His fleet was still intact, still in formation. They would proceed with the mission. Continue advancing. We can restore communications later. That's when Admiral Chen gave the order humanity had been waiting 10 months to hear. All units attack. Show them what humanity can do. The space behind Mars erupted with fire. 500 Reaper fighters launched at once, their engines burning bright as they accelerated toward the enemy fleet. Jake led the charge, his fighter's targeting system locking onto the nearest Calreth battleship. Reaper squadron, weapons free. Hit them hard. The fighters spread out in a perfect attack pattern, just like they had practiced thousands of times. They dove toward the Calreth fleet like hunting birds, quantum disruptors charging. The Calreth ships tried to respond, but without communications they couldn't coordinate their defense. Each ship fought alone, confused. Jake's targeting system beeped. Lock acquired. He fired the quantum disruptor. The blue energy beam struck the Calreth battleship's hull and the ship simply came apart. Metal, plastic, and bodies exploded outward in a silent fireball. First kill, Kate Sullivan shouted over the radio. These weapons are incredible. All around the Calreth fleet, Reaper fighters struck like lightning. Each attack destroyed a ship. The Calreth tried to shoot back, but the human fighters were too fast, too well trained. They hit and vanished, then struck from another direction. War Commander Thelnock watched in horror as his fleet took damage. Launch fighters! Return fire! What are you waiting for? But without communications, the orders couldn't be transmitted. Each Calreth ship had to make its own decisions, and chaos spread through the formation. Some ships tried to retreat. Others fired wildly. The perfect formation collapsed. Then the asteroid belt came alive. Hidden weapon platforms activated, launching thousands of missiles at the Calreth fleet. The missiles, equipped with cloaking technology, were invisible until the last second. They struck Calreth ships by the dozens, explosions blossoming throughout space. Commander Nick Ryan's fleet emerged from behind the moon. 100 warships, Each one bristling with weapons, accelerated toward the enemy. They had been built for one purpose: maximum destruction. All ships fire at will, Nick ordered. The human warships opened fire. Quantum disruptors, railguns, missiles, and laser batteries all discharged at once. The amount of firepower was staggering. Calreth ships that had survived the fighter attack now faced a wall of destructive energy. The Fury, Admiral Chen's flagship, led the charge. Its main weapon, a massive quantum disruptor, fired at a Calreth battleship. The enemy vessel's shields flickered and died. The hull cracked open like an egg. Atmosphere and debris poured into space. Target destroyed, the weapons officer reported. Acquiring new target. Admiral Chen watched the battle unfold on her tactical display. The plan was working. The Calreth fleet was in disarray, unable to coordinate, taking massive casualties. But they weren't defeated yet. They still had numbers on their side. All units maintain pressure. Don't give them time to regroup. War Commander Thelnock tried desperately to regain control of his fleet. Without communications, he could only signal the ships nearest to him with visual signals. Form defensive positions. Concentrate fire on the human warships. Some Calreth ships responded, pulling together into clusters for mutual defense. They began returning fire more effectively. A human warship took a direct hit and exploded. Then another. Jake saw the Calreth adapting. Reaper Squadron, they're regrouping. Hit those clusters before they can organize. The fighters dove in again, targeting the forming defensive positions. But now the Calreth were ready. Energy weapons filled space with deadly fire. 3 Reaper fighters exploded in quick succession. 4 more took damage and had to retreat. Stay focused, Jake shouted. Watch your spacing. Don't give them easy targets. Kate Sullivan's fighter took a hit that sheared off one wing. She struggled with the controls. I'm hit. Engine failure. I'm going down. Jake watched her fighter tumble toward Earth. Eject, Kate. Eject now. Trying. Controls not responding. Her fighter plunged into Earth's atmosphere, trailing fire. Jake felt rage flood through him. He spun his fighter toward the Calreth ship that had fired the shot and accelerated at full speed. His targeting system screamed warnings about defensive fire, but he ignored them. He got close, so close he could see the alien faces through the ship's windows, and fired his quantum disruptor at point-blank range. The Calreth ship disintegrated. Jake flew through the debris cloud, his fighter taking minor damage from the fragments. He didn't care. Kate was dead. Ben was dead. 42 million were dead. And he was going to make the Calreth pay for every single one. The battle raged for hours. Ships on both sides died by the dozens. Space became filled with debris, bodies, and burning wreckage. The Calreth tried to retreat, but human ships pursued them relentlessly. No mercy, no quarter. This was total war. War Commander Thelnock finally managed to restore limited communications with some of his ships. What he learned horrified him. He had lost over 100 battleships. Thousands of support vessels were destroyed. His fleet was being decimated by an enemy he had thought defeated. He opened a communication channel, not knowing if the humans would even respond. Human forces, this is War Commander Thelnock. We can negotiate. We can find peace. Please cease your attack. The channel was silent for a long moment. Then a voice responded. Admiral Lisa Chen's voice was cold, emotionless. You had your chance for peace. You chose fire. Now burn in it. The human fleet increased their attack. More missiles launched. More energy weapons fired. The Calreth fleet broke apart completely, ships fleeing in all directions. But there was nowhere to run. Human fighters hunted them down. Human warships blocked their escape routes. The trap was perfect. Thelnock realized with growing horror that he was going to die here. His mighty fleet, the pride of the Calreth collective, was being destroyed by primitive humans. It was impossible. It was unthinkable. But it was happening. His flagship took multiple hits. Systems failed throughout the ship. Fires broke out on several decks. The crew abandoned their stations and ran for escape pods. Commander, we must evacuate, his second officer shouted. 3 months after the Battle of Earth, humanity went on the offensive. Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the warship Reckoning, watching through the main window as the human fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel near a Calreth colony world. 50 warships, 2,000 fighters, and a message that would echo across the galaxy. Target is the Velrith system, Admiral Lisa Chen said from her command chair. Population 2 billion Calreth and allied species. Military installations, 3 orbital defense platforms, 1 fleet base, planetary shield generators in 4 cities. Jake studied the planet on the tactical display. It looked peaceful from space. Green continents, blue oceans, white clouds. But somewhere down there were military facilities that supplied the Calreth fleet. Weapons factories, training centers, the infrastructure that made the Calreth war machine possible. "What are our orders?" Commander Nick Ryan asked from the tactical station. Admiral Chen pulled up targeting data. "Precision strikes on military targets only. We're not like the Calreth. We don't murder civilians, but we will destroy their ability to make war. Weapons platforms take out the orbital defenses. Fighter squadrons destroy the fleet base. Capital ships target the shield generators and military factories. The Calreth defenses activated quickly. Energy weapons fired from the orbital platforms. Fighters launched from the fleet base. Planetary shields powered up over the major cities. They had been expecting retaliation after Earth, but they weren't ready for how aggressive humanity had become. The human fleet didn't slow down or try to negotiate. They went straight to the attack. Jake led the Reaper squadron toward the fleet base. His squadron had been rebuilt after the losses at Earth, filled with new pilots who were just as determined as the ones who died. They dove toward the base, dodging defensive fire. "Remember your training," Jake said calmly over the radio. "Fast approach, fire the disruptors, get out clean. Don't take unnecessary risks." The fighters split into attack groups, each one targeting a different section of the fleet base. Quantum disruptors fired, tearing through shields and hull plating. Explosions rippled across the base as ammunition depots and fuel storage tanks detonated. Within minutes, the fleet base was burning wreckage. "Target destroyed," Jake reported. "No casualties." Moving to secondary targets, the human warships focused their fire on the orbital platforms. The platforms were heavily armed and well shielded, but they were designed to fight other capital ships, not the coordinated assault of 50 warships firing quantum disruptors simultaneously. One by one, the platforms broke apart and fell toward the planet's surface. Admiral Chen watched the battle unfold with satisfaction. The Calreth are learning that Earth was not a lucky victory. This is what happens when they wake up a sleeping monster. On the planet's surface, Calreth military commanders scrambled to respond. They sent urgent messages to the collective leadership, begging for reinforcements. But help was too far away. The human attack was too fast, too overwhelming. President Kyle Matthews had made the strategy clear in his briefing before the fleet departed Earth. "We're not trying to occupy Calreth worlds. We're not trying to genocide their population. We're systematically destroying their military capacity. Every weapons factory we eliminate is one less ship they can build. Every training facility we destroy is one less generation of soldiers. We're going to break the Calreth collective piece by piece until they have no choice but to surrender." The attack on Velrith lasted 4 hours. When it ended, every military installation on the planet was destroyed. The shield generators were rubble. The fleet base was debris. The weapons factories were smoking craters. But the civilian cities were untouched. Hospitals, schools, homes, all intact. Admiral Chen broadcast a message to the planet. "People of Velrith, this is Admiral Lisa Chen of the human fleet. We have destroyed your military infrastructure. Your soldiers and commanders are responsible for the deaths of 42 million humans. This is justice. But we are not monsters. Your civilians are safe. Rebuild your world, but know this. If you rebuild weapons to attack humanity, we will return and do this again. Choose peace." The human fleet jumped away before Calreth reinforcements could arrive. They left behind a planet shocked by the speed and precision of the attack. But Velrith was just the beginning. Over the next 2 months, human fleet struck at 6 more Calreth colony worlds. Each time, they destroyed military targets with surgical precision. Each time, they left civilian populations unharmed. Each time, they broadcast the same message. This is justice for the 42 million. The Calreth collective tried to respond. They sent fleets to intercept the human attacks, but humanity had learned from their intelligence networks. Lieutenant Alex Grant, now promoted to captain, continued to gather information from deep within Calreth space. He identified supply routes, fleet movements, weak points in their defenses. Every time the Calreth tried to set a trap, humanity knew about it in advance. In one engagement near the Calreth supply depot at Fornax Station, the human fleet arrived to find a Calreth ambush waiting. 60 Calreth battleships surrounded the human force of 20 ships. It should have been a massacre. Instead, Commander Nick Ryan activated the advanced electronic warfare systems that Dr. Claire Anderson had developed. The Calreth targeting systems went haywire. Their weapons fired at empty space. Their shields flickered on and off randomly, and while they struggled with their malfunctioning systems, the human fleet tore them apart. Technology is the great equalizer, Claire had explained when she developed the systems. The Calreth rely on advanced computers for everything. Disrupt those computers and their advantages disappear. After the Battle of Fornax Station, where humanity destroyed 60 Calreth battleships and lost only 3 human vessels, the Calreth collective leadership began sending peace delegations to Earth. The first delegation arrived with formal apologies and offers of compensation. President Kyle Matthews met with them personally in the Earth Government Building. Jake Morrison stood nearby as part of the security detail. The Calreth ambassador, a different one than the traitor Velrith, bowed low. President Matthews, on behalf of the Calreth Collective, we deeply regret the unfortunate incidents that began this conflict. We are prepared to offer substantial compensation for the lives lost, and to establish a lasting peace between our peoples. Matthews looked at the ambassador with cold eyes. Unfortunate incidents. You murdered 42 million people. You attacked our colonies without warning. You tried to enslave our entire species. And now you want to call it unfortunate incidents? We were misguided, the ambassador said quickly. We made errors in judgment. But continued warfare benefits no one. Please let us find a peaceful resolution. Matthews stood up. Here is my peaceful resolution. The Calreth Collective will surrender unconditionally. You will disband your military fleets. You will submit to human oversight of your government. You will pay reparations for the next 100 years. And you will build a memorial on your homeworld listing the name of every human you killed. Those are my terms. The ambassador looked shocked. Those terms are impossible. The collective will never surrender. We are offering you peace as equals. We're not equals, Matthews said flatly. You attacked us, we won. Now you pay the price. If you don't accept these terms, the human fleet will continue destroying your military infrastructure until you have nothing left. We can do this the easy way or the hard way. Choose. The ambassador left without agreeing to anything. The war continued. 2 more Calreth colony worlds lost their military capabilities. Human fleets struck deeper into Calreth space, hitting targets that the collective thought were safe. Shipyards burned. Training academies were leveled. Supply depots exploded. The second peace delegation arrived a month later. They offered better terms but still expected humanity to negotiate like nothing had happened. President Matthews sent them away with the same ultimatum: unconditional surrender or continued warfare. Jake Morrison participated in many of the raids. His Reaper squadron became legendary. Calreth military commanders feared the sight of the human fighters dropping out of faster-than-light travel near their worlds. The fighters that had turned the Battle of Earth were now the harbingers of destruction across Calreth space. But the constant warfare was taking its toll on everyone. Jake saw it in his pilots. They were efficient, deadly, professional, but they were also tired. Some had been fighting for over a year without real rest. The thrill of victory had faded into grim determination. One night, Jake sat with Amy Carter in the officers' lounge on the Reckoning. Amy had joined the fleet as a strategic advisor, helping plan attacks using her scientific knowledge of Calreth technology. Do you think it will ever end? Amy asked quietly. Yes, Jake said. Either the Calreth surrender or we destroy their military completely. Either way it ends, but at what cost? We've become everything we fought against. We're spreading destruction across the galaxy. Jake thought about that. No, the Calreth targeted civilians. They murdered children. We're targeting military installations. We're giving them every chance to surrender. There's a difference, is there? Amy looked at him. When does justice become revenge? When does defending ourselves become aggression? Jake didn't have a good answer. He just knew that humanity couldn't stop. The stars looked different from the bridge of the Aurora. Captain Jake Morrison stood at the main window, watching the alien world grow larger as his ship approached. Behind him, the crew worked quietly at their stations. Everyone felt the weight of this moment. Humanity was about to make its first real contact with an advanced alien civilization. Distance to the Calreth homeworld? Jake asked. 2 million kilometers in closing, replied Lieutenant Ben Harper from the navigation console. His hands moved across the controls with practiced ease. They're sending us approach vectors now. Very polite, very organized. Amy Carter looked up from her science station. Her dark hair was tied back and her eyes showed both excitement and concern. Captain, I'm reading at least 50 orbital platforms around their planet. Those aren't defensive satellites. Those are weapons platforms. Serious ones? Jake nodded slowly. He had expected this. Any species that controlled half a dozen star systems would have strong defenses. They're just being careful. We would do the same if unknown aliens approached Earth. The communication console beeped. A face appeared on the main screen. The Calreth looked almost human, but their skin had a slight blue tint and their eyes were larger, more expressive. The alien wore what appeared to be formal robes covered in symbols. Captain Morrison of Earth, I am Ambassador Velrith. On behalf of the Calreth Collective, I welcome you. We have prepared a reception for your arrival. We are honored to meet humanity. Jake smiled and gave a slight bow. Thank you, Ambassador. We're honored as well. Humanity has dreamed of this day for centuries. Then let us make it memorable, Velrith said. His expression seemed warm, friendly. Please follow the guidance path to our primary landing facility. We have much to discuss. The screen went dark. Amy walked over to Jake, keeping her voice low. Something feels wrong. I can't explain it, but those weapons platforms are all pointed toward us. That's not a defensive posture. You worry too much, Ben said from his station. They're probably just being cautious. We're the first humans they've met. For all they know, we could be hostile. Jake wanted to believe Ben, but Amy's instincts were usually right. Keep scanning everything. If something looks strange, tell me immediately. The aurora descended through the atmosphere. The Calreth homeworld was beautiful. Massive cities spread across the continents, connected by transport networks that glowed with energy. Parks and gardens covered large areas between the buildings. Everything looked clean, organized, perfect. The landing facility was enormous. Hundreds of ships sat in organized rows, each one different in design. Jake recognized vessels from at least a dozen different species. The Calreth Collective wasn't just one race. It was an alliance of many worlds. They've built quite an empire, Jake muttered. The aurora touched down gently. Jake selected a small team to join him on the surface. Ben Harper would come, along with Amy Carter and 2 security officers. The rest of the crew would remain on the ship ready for anything. The airlock opened and Jake stepped onto alien soil for the first time. The gravity felt slightly lighter than Earth. The air smelled strange, like flowers mixed with metal. Ambassador Velrith waited at the bottom of the ramp, along with a dozen other Calreth officials. Welcome, welcome. Velrith spread his arms wide. Please come. We have prepared a great celebration in your honor. Tonight we formally invite humanity to join the collective. Together we will accomplish wonderful things. The Calreth led them through the facility and into a massive building. The celebration hall was incredible. Thousands of aliens filled the space, representing dozens of species. Music played from somewhere. Tables overflowed with food and drink. Lights danced across the ceiling in complex patterns. This is amazing, Ben whispered. They really went all out for us. Amy stayed close to Jake. She kept glancing around, studying everything. Captain, notice how many guards are here? And they're all armed. Why would you need so many armed guards at a celebration? Jake had noticed the same thing. Calreth soldiers stood at every exit, weapons visible on their belts. Maybe it's ceremonial. Like honor guards. Maybe, Amy said, but she didn't sound convinced. Ambassador Velrith guided them to a raised platform at the center of the hall. Please, honored guests, stand here. I will now present humanity to the collective. Jake and his team climbed onto the platform. The music stopped. Every alien in the hall turned to face them. Velrith raised his hands and spoke in a voice that echoed through the chamber. Members of the collective, we have studied humanity for many cycles. We have watched them grow from a primitive species to one capable of crossing the stars. Today we extend our hand in friendship. We offer them membership in our great alliance. The crowd made sounds of approval. Jake felt pride swelling in his chest. This was really happening. Humanity would join the galactic community. However, Velrith continued and his tone changed. The warmth disappeared from his voice. We have also determined that humanity poses a significant risk. Their technological advancement is too rapid. Their aggressive tendencies are too strong. If left unchecked, they will eventually threaten the stability of the collective. Jake felt his blood turn cold. What are you saying? I am saying that we cannot allow humanity to continue on its current path. Velrith looked directly at Jake. We are sorry, but you leave us no choice. The exits slammed shut. The armed guards drew their weapons. Amy grabbed Jake's arm. We need to get back to the ship. But it was too late. The celebration hall erupted in chaos. Aliens ran in all directions, screaming. The guards weren't aiming at the crowd. They were aiming at the platform where the humans stood. Run, Jake shouted. They jumped from the platform as energy weapons fired where they had been standing. Ben pulled out his sidearm and returned fire, hitting a guard in the chest. The guard went down, but 10 more appeared to replace him. Amy spotted a side door. There, go! They ran through the chaos. Aliens trampled each other trying to escape. Energy blasts burned through the air. One of the security officers screamed and fell, a smoking hole in his back. The other officer stopped to help him, and both disappeared in a blast of energy. Jake's communicator crackled to life. Captain, this is the Aurora. We're under attack. The orbital platforms just opened fire on every human vessel in the system. The diplomatic fleet is gone. We're taking damage. Get out of there, Jake shouted into the communicator. Emergency jump. Get back to Earth. We can't leave you. That's an order. Warn Earth. Tell them the Calreth are hostile. The communicator went silent. Jake didn't know if the Aurora had escaped or been destroyed. All he knew was that he, Amy, and Ben were alone on a hostile alien world, being hunted. They burst through the side door and found themselves in a narrow corridor. Ben sealed the door behind them, buying them a few seconds. Which way? The landing facility, Jake said. We need to find a ship. They ran through the corridors. Alarms wailed throughout the building. Calreth soldiers appeared around every corner. Jake and his team fought their way forward using their sidearms to clear a path. Energy blasts scorched the walls around them. Amy checked her scanner. I'm picking up a lot of activity at the landing facility. They're launching ships. Attacking our colonies, Jake said grimly. This was planned. All of it. They reached the landing facility just in time to see the Aurora explode in orbit. The fireball lit up the sky like a second sun. Jake felt like he had been punched in the gut. His crew, his ship, gone. Captain, Ben pointed to a small craft nearby. That's a shuttle. We can use it. They ran toward the shuttle. Calreth soldiers fired at them from the facility entrance. Ben turned and provided cover fire while Jake and Amy reached the shuttle. Amy broke through the security lock and opened the hatch. Ben, come on, Jake shouted. Ben ran toward them, still firing behind him. He was almost to the shuttle when an energy blast caught him in the side. He stumbled, dropped to one knee. Jake jumped down and grabbed him, pulling him into the shuttle. Go, go, Ben gasped, blood spreading across his uniform. Amy fired up the engines. The shuttle lifted off just as Calreth soldiers surrounded it. Energy blasts hit the hull, but the shields held. They climbed rapidly into the atmosphere. Jake knelt beside Ben, trying to stop the bleeding. Hold on. We'll get you to a medical facility. Ben coughed and blood appeared on his lips. No, you won't. Listen. Get home. Warn everyone. His eyes closed and he stopped breathing. Jake sat back numb. Everything had happened so fast. An hour ago, they were celebrating humanity's entry into the galactic community. Now his crew was dead, his ship was destroyed, and war had begun. Amy piloted the shuttle away from the Calreth homeworld. Her hands shook on the controls. Captain, I'm picking up transmissions from human space. The colonies, New Seattle, Horizon's Edge, Port Liberty, they're all under attack. The Calreth sent fleets to every human settlement simultaneously. How many casualties? Jake's voice sounded hollow. Amy's face went pale as she read the reports. Millions. They're not targeting military installations. They're targeting cities, civilian populations. This isn't a war. It's extermination. Jake stared out at the stars. Somewhere out there, human colonies were burning. People were dying. Children were dying. All because the Calreth had decided humanity was too dangerous to exist. A transmission came through on all frequencies. Ambassador Velreth's